Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio, and we're going to start off with our foundational verse. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Powerful verse. We say it every day, right, Alan?
We do. And let me further say in Psalm 147, I ended off yesterday with verse 11, but verse 12 says, "Exalt the Lord, Jerusalem. Praise your God, Zion, for he strengthens the bars of your gates. He blesses your children within you.
Yeah.
He endows your territory with prosperity. He satisfies you with the finest wheat. He sends his command throughout the earth. His word runs swiftly. He spreads snow like wool. He scatters frost like ashes. He throws his hailstones like crumbs. Who can withstand his cold? He sends his word and melts them. He unleashes his winds and the wind flows, the waters flow. He declares his word to Jacob, his statutes and judgments to Israel. He has not done this for any nation. They do not know his judgments. Hallelujah."
Oh, how good is God? So good.
Okay.
Let's get on with our guest. His name is Mr. Sean Buckley. Sean, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you. Very glad to be here.
Sean, we're doing part 2 of Del Bigtree's testimony. If you guys missed part 1, you got to go back and watch it. It's fascinating stuff. I'm going to let you tee it up. Sean, how did you get Del to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think God had his hand in it. And I'm not quite sure all the reasons yet, because just so everyone understands, so Del runs the HighWire, which is a show. It gets, I think a bad show gets like 4 million views. He was the communications director for Robert Kennedy Jr.'s presidential campaign bid. So, basically he was spending his time in Washington at the Senate hearings and, jumps on a plane, flies to Edmonton, gets in late at night, testifies in the morning, and then flies out again. This gentleman is in huge demand. And he, so even the idea that he would say, oh yeah, I'll testify, but he could have testified virtually, but for some reason he made the decision he wanted to see what was happening at the NCI, and he came. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And even, Talk Truth, you're having 3 shows, and you've mentioned to me, you think it's the most powerful testimony yet at the NCI, and it is. So yeah. I think that, the truth has to come out. And that part of the reason he came was so that, it can come out. Yeah. And, I'm excited. I'm excited about, what your viewers are going to see, because it's so powerful.
Me too. Here's part 2.
Well, if you go to the FDA's website and you ask, well, how are vaccines tested for safety? Are they safe? It will say this on the website. How does the FDA assess the safety of vaccines? Vaccines undergo rigorous and extensive testing to determine their safety and effectiveness. Highly trained scientists and medical personnel at FDA carefully review all the information and marketing application before a vaccine can be approved for use by the public. Sounds great, but let's look at the actual reality. This is a product, this is a drug called Lipitor. This is how drugs are treated. It got a 4.8-year review period in the trial, and it had a sugar pill as the placebo group. This is important. What we're talking about, I don't know how many of you remember your high school science classes, but the randomized controlled trial, or the double-blind placebo study, is the only way to determine safety in a pharmaceutical product. One group gets the product, another group of equal size gets something that looks just like the product but has no effect on the human body. In this case, Lipitor is a pill, so they give a sugar pill to the placebo group. It's painted to look just like Lipitor, and neither the people receiving it or the scientists administering it know which one is which. And for 4.8 years, we tracked both groups, and at the end of it, we finally asked certain questions. Who had more cancer? Who had more diabetes? Did anyone have any mutagenic effects? All of the obvious questions you would ask. Is there any sort of mutations in the body or the DNA? And if, then they unblind it. And for the first time, the scientists recognize who is who. And if the drug group comes out with the same safety profile as the placebo group, we now state that it's safe. This is Enbrel. It's an injectable. It got a 6.6-year safety trial. In this case, because it's an injection, the placebo group received a saline injection. Now, I want to point out something here. These are the top-selling drugs, if you will, of these companies. Pfizer's top 5 selling drugs. Enbrel had, as I pointed out, 6.6 years. It had a placebo. Eliquis, Pfizer, 7.4 years placebo. PCV13 had a 1.5-year safety review period. And the control used was another PCV7. So this was a new vaccine, PCV13. Its placebo was not a saline placebo. It was the previous form of the vaccine itself. Notice the discrepancy in time. Then we go back to 2 years, 4.9 years. If you see a difference on that, one of these is not like the other. Everyone is a multi-year trial except for the only one that's a vaccine. It's their third highest seller. Vaccines in the first 6 months of life. I want to show you that the hepatitis B vaccine had a 5-day safety review period. Not 5 years, not 5 months, not 5 weeks, 5 days, IPV 3 days, and again, no placebo group, so no comparator. Now, the point of this is if you don't have a placebo group, the pharmaceutical industry are the ones doing the trial themselves. Remember, our trials are not done by our regulatory agencies. They're done by the company that's going to make the money off of it, and then they present their great findings in their own trials that they prove their own safety. And if there is any anomaly, a child dies inside of the trial, if you don't have a placebo group that could say it was a natural death, if one child gets cancer or autism, if you don't have a placebo group and you can't say, well, look, there was more autism in the group that got the drug than the saline group, if you can't do that, anytime they see an issue, they write it off as a natural cause. All right, please bring this back up. I'm going to prove this to you, though, because those are just words and numbers. I'm a journalist, and I think it's important you see how this works. Anyone can go to the internet, and all you have to do is type in vaccines for use, or just write an FDA-approved vaccines. Every one of our vaccines pop up. I'm going to click on Recombavax HB. This is the hepatitis B vaccine given on the first day of life. All of this is online. No magic trick here. You click on the vaccine insert. Every insert at 6.1 on that insert, by the way, it's wrapped around the vaccine that arrives to your pediatrician. You never see it. It describes the clinical trials relied upon to determine safety. And this is how we have the information we have. In the second paragraph, in 3 clinical studies of 434 doses of Recombavax HB, 5 micrograms were administered to 147 healthy infants and children up to 10 years of age, who were monitored for 5 days. There's no placebo group, and I want to point out that this was only 147 children, so they will talk about studies that we've provided of vaccinated versus unvaccinated, where there's 600 people in a trial to say that's not enough to determine anything. But ironically, to determine safety for a product given to day 1 old babies in the United States of America, and by the way, this wasn't even 147 day 1 old babies. It was 147 infant to 10 years of age, and if you were doing this trial yourself and owned this company, do you think you would lean towards the 10-year-old test group or the 1-day-old babies? You're obviously going to try and get the best results. We don't really know, but that's the reality. Let's go on. When they say vaccine injury is rare, or they say that it doesn't exist at all, we're told to even bring up injuries whatsoever. Vaccines are safe and effective. Every time you ask your pediatrician, they're safe and effective. Interesting, because in the post-marketing experience, since, remember, this vaccine had a 5-day safety trial. So if a child died on day 7, there is no record of it. And if you tried to say that deaths are being caused by this vaccine, they'd say, well, we don't have any science that shows us this. I'm going to show you how this game has been played from the beginning. If your child develops autism 2 years later, or a neurological disorder, or an autoimmune disease which will never appear inside of 5 days, anyone that's suffering from an autoimmune disease knows that takes quite a bit of time to happen. None of that will appear. So you don't have anything in your pre-licensure surveillance. So how about post-licensure surveillance? I just point down here near the bottom because it shows you just how many things we're dealing with just in nervous system disorders. This is what the pharmaceutical industry has to write on the warning label that arrives with every single vaccine by law. And the rule is if it is believed it could be causative. If there's enough complaints about an issue that are stacking up, you have to put it in this warning label. So under nervous system disorders, they write that the hepatitis B vaccine given to your day one old baby could cause Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is paralysis, multiple sclerosis, exacerbation of multiple sclerosis, myelitis, including transverse myelitis, once again, paralysis, seizure, febrile seizure, peripheral neuropathy, including Bell's palsy, radiculopathy, herpes zoster, migraine, muscle weakness, hyposthesia, and I think most importantly, encephalitis. You will find in most of these vaccines that encephalitis is a side effect. I want to point out, I once said to a mother, I was asking her about vaccines and autism. She said, vaccines are not what caused my child's autism. Vaccines caused my child to have encephalitis, which was a swelling of their brain. They screamed and yelled. They lost the ability to talk and walk. The injury was so bad. And when their brain finally stopped swelling, they were left with a symptom called autism. They could have been left with Tourette's. If it was a light brain swelling, it could have been ADD, ADHD. But to say that vaccines cannot cause autism, but know that it can cause brain swelling, is actually defying how science actually works. I would also go on to say that we know brain swelling is possible because the entire purpose of a vaccine is to cause an inflammatory event. That is how it's designed to work. Very simply, if you just injected a virus into your body and it didn't know it was there, then it wouldn't be inflamed. One of the things we look at are adjuvants. We think that this is a big part of the problem with vaccinations. Let me just give you sort of the lay perspective on how a vaccine works. If you use a killed virus or a deadened virus and you inject it in the arm, we have a couple of problems with the entire approach. When you, throughout time prior to the existence of a vaccine, viruses and bacteria only come through your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, your mucosal system. We never received a virus through our arm. We weren't designed by God to receive it that way, and certainly nothing in nature made it happen that way. So when we started injecting viruses and bacteria into our arms, we had a problem. Our body has no alarm system to begin an immune reactive event to make sure that you start creating antibodies. So in medicine's infinite wisdom, they said we've got to add a neurotoxin. This is where the aluminum or the mercury comes in. The neurotoxin is added to the vaccine because we have been bit by snakes. Our body does know to experience a neurotoxin coming anywhere in our body, or stop stepping on poison ivy, or all the different ways. So they put a neurotoxin in the vaccine to create an inflammatory event. So now all of a sudden you're under attack. Your body knows you're under attack by something, and while it's looking to see the neurotoxin, it recognizes there's this killed virus or bacteria there, and then it starts making antibodies. That's the basic way the vaccine works. We've gone past the natural system, so we had to add toxins into the product in order to make it work as an injectable. All right. So we give day one old babies a hepatitis B vaccine that only had a 5-day safety trial. That hepatitis B vaccine has a load of aluminum that is far beyond anything we have ever seen. There has never, ever been a study of aluminum in human beings. We use it as a neurotoxin, but we don't know how toxic it is. The safety of aluminum was determined by a rat study. And in that rat study, they fed the rats aluminum, didn't inject them with it, fed it to them, and they determined from an oral rat study that 25 micrograms would be the highest safe level dosage for an infant. 25 micrograms. Now, I would just say, again, I'm not a scientist, but do you think eating 25 micrograms would be the same as injecting it? Eating it, it's in an open system, it passes through. How much of it ends up being toxic versus injecting it straight into your arm? enters perhaps your bloodstream, or if we're lucky, gets trapped in your muscle, never leaves your body, but clearly injecting something would have far more toxicity. So were they stupid enough to inject the same amount that they approved as the maximum dose for an oral dose of aluminum at 25 micrograms? No, the vaccine does not have 25 micrograms being injected into you. It doesn't have 50, it doesn't have 100, it doesn't have 200. It has 250 micrograms of aluminum, 10 times the legal dose of an oral dose injected into a day one old baby that is this big. And it doesn't matter if that baby is 10 pounds or a 3-pound premature baby, they will inject the preemie baby the moment it is pulled into the world. And when you go to the media, this is what we know. The U.S. has the highest first-day infant mortality out of the industrialized world. In fact, it was reported we have 50% more babies die on the first day of life than every other industrialized nation combined. This is a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease you only catch if you are sleeping with prostitutes or injecting yourself with heroin or other needles that are being shared. So why can't we at least just pause this one vaccine on the first day of life? There was a very interesting exchange with Robert Kennedy Jr. in his confirmation hearings with Senator Cassidy, who's a doctor that brought up hepatitis B, and Rand Paul challenged him. Cassidy was worried that Bobby might affect the hepatitis B vaccine program, and Dr. Rand Paul said, well, you do know that this is a sexually transmitted disease. I don't see why a day one old baby should need this. Cassidy rightly said sometimes there's mothers with that are hepatitis B positive. It protects their baby. Dr. Rand Paul said, but we test every mother in America. We test their blood before they give birth. We know whether they're hepatitis B positive or not. So why would a mother that's negative have to give this to their baby? And Senator Cassidy, who was trying to be diehard, admitted right there, well, all right, I don't think it should be mandatory if you are testing hepatitis B negative. Unfortunately, in California, where I was living for many years, I would get calls from parents, mothers, that were trying to refuse the hepatitis B vaccine in the hospital, and they were calling Child Protective Services and threatening to take their baby away for child abuse. That is how out of control the situation is here. I doubt it's much different in Canada. Other stats that are very impressive in the United States of America is we have American babies are less likely to survive their first year than babies in other rich countries. That's a terrible stat. As I said, we bring a lot of lawsuits. This is a lawsuit that we focused on, I think it's GlaxoSmithKline. I don't know if you had this ad here, but basically this was a Little Red Riding Hood story where grandparents were turned into the big bad wolf if they decided to visit the new infant in the family without getting their tetanus, diphtheria, and acellular pertussis vaccine. The whole story being whooping cough. I don't know, I would imagine that doctors do the same thing here. If there's a new baby coming into the family, the grandparents are told you better go get your Tdap vaccine, same as the DTaP vaccine. DTaP's the childhood version, Tdap the adult version, but you don't want the infant to get whooping cough, so protect them by getting your grandparents and everybody in the family goes out and gets this vaccine. Well, we argued that that was false advertising, to say that you were protecting the infant by getting this vaccine. Here's why. They did baboon trials where they gave the baboons pertussis. Then they gave the vaccine to baboons that were healthy and then put them in contact with the baboons that had pertussis. And to their shock, when they did autopsies, they found that in the lungs of the baboons that had received the vaccine, they were colonizing just as much pertussis as a baboon that had not been vaccinated. The only thing the vaccine was doing was stopping their symptoms, much like we saw ended up having with the COVID vaccine. So it doesn't stop infection, therefore it doesn't stop transmission. All it's doing is stopping the signal that lets you know you are carrying pertussis. We argued in court that this is a problem. If you are saying that the entire reason grandma and grandpa should get this vaccine is to protect the infant, but all you're doing is taking away the symptom and recognition, the alarm that lets them know that they're sick, you're actually putting your baby in greater danger. Because if grandma and grandpa have a scratchy throat or start feeling bad, they're going to call you and say, I don't think we should visit the baby right now. We're not feeling so good. But if they have this vaccine, they are carriers of whooping cough, and they're going to come and hug and kiss your baby, not knowing that they are actually silent killers and could be putting them at risk. You will not see this ad now anywhere in the world. It's been pulled down. The story gets worse, though. This is a study done by Boston University. The resurgence of whooping cough may owe to vaccines' inability to prevent infections. Look at this paragraph. This is how our science works around vaccines. This disease is back because we didn't really understand how our immune defenses against whooping cough worked and did not understand how the vaccines needed to work to prevent it, said Christopher J. Gill, Associate Professor of Global Health and lead author of the article. Instead, we layered assumptions upon assumptions and now find ourselves in the uncomfortable position of admitting that we may have made some crucial errors. This is definitely not where we thought we'd be in 2017. We are gaslit, bullied, and told that we should not be questioning the safety of vaccines, but when they finally do their own research, they have to admit there wasn't science here. There was assumptions piled on top of assumptions, and now we find ourselves with a problem. Whooping cough is sweeping America. It is sweeping Canada because we can no longer stop it. We have no herd immunity. It used to be you would catch it once and would have nearly lifelong immunity. Now when you get vaccinated, you catch it all the time. That's what's learned in this study. Journal of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society, the 112-year odyssey of pertussis and pertussis vaccines, mistakes made and implications for the future. Because of linked epitope suppression, all children who were primed by DTaP vaccines will be more susceptible to pertussis throughout their lifetimes. And there is no easy way to decrease this increased lifetime susceptibility. We have mutated our children. Every one of them that has received a DTaP vaccine can no longer stop this virus. Now, every time they come in contact with it, they're carriers. And one of the things that we want science to look at is how many vaccines are working like this. Are we actually blocking measles, or are we just blocking the symptoms? Is it possible that the autoimmune disease crisis that is happening is because our children no longer block disease but carry multiple diseases all the time, not knowing that they're chronically ill with infectious disease that their bodies used to block but now carry everywhere they go? That's a hypothesis. Let me be clear, that's a hypothesis that needs to be, investigated immediately.
I love it. So good, man. That testimony is so good. Sean, go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's powerful, but isn't it absolutely disturbing? And, he's using the FDA as an example on how the FDA basically says all these vaccines are proven to be safe and effective. Like, let's not anyone in Canada go, oh, yeah, but, they ran clinical trials and gave Health Canada different evidence. No. So, when we're talking about hepatitis B vaccine and all these other, vaccines, understand, parents, that there has not been a double-blind clinical trial with a placebo for any of them. And understand, like, literally, we're talking for most of them days of safety data. I mean, like 5 days for many of them. Well, you're not going to know if there's any safety signal in a meaningful way after 5 days. And he made it clear in his testimony, so somebody dies on day 7 or a child dies on day 7 or 8, it's not counted. And then the government agency says, well, we don't have any evidence of death or harm because they only looked at the 5 days. But the post-surveillance data is just screaming, death and harm, and yet we're ignoring it. So, what I find scary about this is just how it's in our face. He's making it so clear to us that our government agencies are completely lying. Because it's not like the CDC is saying, oh, these are safe and effective, and Health Canada is saying, don't take them. We don't have any safety data. We don't have any efficacy data. We're getting the same messaging from our government. That's what's disturbing me.
Yeah. Dad?
It boggles my mind that the government removed, them being able to be sued for damages with a vaccine, thinking that, well, we're not going to be able to produce any vaccines if we're going to get sued all the time. And the government actually took that off. Think about that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
They took off being sued, meaning that they're going to develop vaccines and give it to you. And in that process, you're going to be the guinea pig of that vaccine. And then we'll find out later whether or not it's actually safe or not. In the meanwhile, you've been injected. That just boggles my mind. It's like if you, no, I'm not going to take away you being sued. You better produce something that's safe and effective, or you should be sued.
Yeah.
You would think the proper response, when the government's approach saying you have to give us immunity because too many people are dying and being harmed, the proper response is referring it to the police for an investigation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The U.S. has the highest first-day infant mortality out of the industrialized world. Why can't we at least just pause this one vaccine on the first day of life? Does that sound ridiculous?
No.
That's a pretty easy question to answer. Anyway, Sean, we appreciate you. We're going to come back the next day for part 3. This testimony is fascinating. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not fired up, you guys have to watch tomorrow's show too. You got to watch the rest of this testimony. Thank God for the National Citizens Inquiry, Sean Buckley, all the team, everybody behind the scenes piecing this together. Fascinating stuff. I love that this is finally getting out there, hopefully waking some people up. We're giving away a free booklet called The Living Stone, A Journey of Transformation. It's yours absolutely free. All you got to do is call our toll-free number, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada to request it. We'll send you a copy. Dad, why do they need to get this copy?
They need to get it because you've got to develop a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And the sad part about it is after you read it, you should see a change in your life because you start to learn how to hear the voice of the Lord.
If you want to help support our mission, keep this truth on the air, we need your support. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on the donate button. You can give digitally, many different ways. You can do it that way, or if you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make a check payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association, 246 Stewart Green, Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8, and you can always do it through our toll-free number and get prayer that way as well, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. And by the way, I just want to say real quick, we want to say thank you to everyone who supports this show, because without you, we're not able to broadcast this truth. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.